Hi everyone, it's coffee and chat time. I'm back from Devon and Cornwall, exploring Dartmouth and Seddon and places like that, which was very exciting. I have for once got a coffee mug with me, but I forgot to fill it, so I've really failed yet again. In good old Oxfordshire, we are Oxford City, which is our local city, is about to go on to lockdown this evening, so things are getting a little tense in this area, but where we are, which is down in Harwell, everything is still okay. But we're joined today by a good friend of mine, Lucy Lewis. We have known each other for too long, over 30 years. And she's one of these people that if we manage to get a conversation into half an hour, I will be stunned. So just as a quick backstory and back history, this woman has been on the Krypton Factor, has been on fast boat racing, has been a big boat racing, sorry, big sailboat racing, has had malaria, has passed out on the parade square in Sandhurst because she had malaria, was the first female bomb disposal officer, joined the Royal Military Police and the British military and had a full career with them. And then for some unknown reason decided that she was going to do something completely different and left the military. In that time, she started to refurbish pens, as in fountain pens, write a book, and become a chief policeman, which she's going to explain a little bit more about now than I, because I'm sure that's the wrong term, of the Cambridge University Constabulary. So, and now she, therefore rides around in a very strange outfit, hence her very strange outfit at the moment, usually hitting cows, because those of you that are listening in from abroad, there are cows in the city of Cambridge. So Lucy tends to be cycling back at night and bowls into cows on regular occasions. So this is a woman that has just done it all and been there and seen it. And, frankly, if we can get it into half an hour, I will be stunned. So thank you, Lucy, so much for joining us. I'm really, really grateful. So we're going to start with the end in mind, and let's just talk for nanoseconds about that really weird get-up that you're in at the moment. So what is this term that I've just called a policeman, but isn't?
Oh, right, yes. No, I'm the University Marshal, and that means I lead the University Constabulary, and we're one of the oldest constabularies in the world. We predate the police, so we're not police constables, we are the old-fashioned term of constable, but we all have the powers of constable within 5 miles of Great St Mary's. And we have a warrant. We carry medieval weapons, so there's a 7-foot battle axe and a 7-foot pike and various other functiony things. There are 26 constables, and they all wear top hat and tails with nice fancy cloaks. I carry a silver mace, the Earl of Holland's mahogany and silver mace, which dates from 1628. And I wear a silk top hat that dates from 1879, that I bought from eBay.
Of course you did.
Only the Chancellor and the Marshal wear gowns of office. Everybody else wears an academic gown, but we wear gowns of office, which is just as well, because I'm not entitled to wear an academic gown, but we don't like to mention that bit. So I wear a very odd gown, and we run all the ceremonial side of Cambridge, or at least help with that. So graduation ceremonies, but we also support the proctors with their freedom of speech. So I get involved in contentious lectures, and all forms of protest and demonstrations. So freedom of speech is a big part of what we do.
So we were just talking before we started about the equality and diversity position of your organisation at the moment, and an incredibly exciting statistic. Do you want to just expand on that?
Oh, yeah, well, at the moment, the women in Cambridge, the heads of houses, i.e. the masters of the colleges, the 31 colleges, and this year, for the first time, it's a pretty much even 50-50 split. We can't really do 50-50 with 31 people, but we're almost there, with heads of houses, we're there. And in Cambridge, being a female in Cambridge University, it's absolutely fine. You don't feel outnumbered, except when you go to the colleges. And I noticed that the head porters of the colleges, there are 31 colleges, of which 2 are all female, but there are only 2 female head porters, so 29 out of 31 are male. And they're not a particularly diverse group either. In fact, they are the least diverse group I think I've ever come across. But so there's some work to be done about diversity in Cambridge, and bearing in mind that the headquarters have such an influence over students, it would be really nice if we can have a little bit more diversity on that front. But the rest
is really interesting. So now the thing that you're doing at the moment in your spare time, because of course you've got loads of it, is writing a book, and writing a book about your early military career. And I know it starts in Sandhurst, but then it goes into what you did as bomb disposal officer and as the first bomb disposal officer. But before we get into the content of the book, why write it?
Well, I did, but not my idea. Like most things I've done in my life, not my idea. It wasn't my idea to be a bomb disposal officer for a start. It certainly wasn't my idea to be marshal or to join the constabulary. They weren't my idea either. But no, when I became marshal, which was 2 years ago, there was quite a lot of publicity at the time, and a literary agent happened to read it and said, "Oh, you know, first female marshal in 800 years, isn't that exciting?" And then read a bit further and found I was, you know, first female bomb disposal operator, and thought, "Oh." So she Googled me, and then of course my email address came up because it does at Cambridge, and so she sent me a message and said, "Would I like to meet and have a chat?" So I went to London, and we had a very nice chat, and over a nice coffee, she persuaded me to come up with a proposal and to sort of write a list, and it sort of went from there.
So how long has this endeavour taken you?
2 years.
2 years.
Well, actually, I've written it in about 4 months, and then they said, "Oh yes, we don't want a book like that. We want something a bit." So I've written about 5 different versions in those 2 years.
Okay.
They did originally cover the whole 30 years between the two, and then it sort of whittled down to we just want bombs, and then army stuff, and then my Cambridge bit is now an epilogue. It was a whole chapter, but they're very excited about Sandhurst. So Sandhurst gets 3 chapters. Northern Ireland gets one very long chapter, and being on the tall ship up the Amazon, and that just gets a couple of mentions. So it's now much more focused, but it is at least no, it's better for having been edited.
And does that mean that there's room for a second book?
Well, there's some scope for some off-topic writing, definitely, because I've got 3 chapters on being at sea, and some of the adventures doing that, and I've got lots more about Cambridge. But I'm busy making new memories about Cambridge all the time. So,
but would you do another? I mean, 2 years, was that a painful 2 years? Has it been exciting 2 years? Would you repeat it?
Well, there was a lot of hurry up and wait. So, you know.
But you're used to that. You used to be in the military, so that's fine.
Totally used to that. So when the lockdown first started and all work ceased, and I'm literally twiddling my thumbs, playing Spider Solitaire all day, and I had no book to work on. And then when I went off to the fields and weeded celery for a while, they then came back and said, "Oh, by the way, you've got 3 weeks to rewrite." So it's all, you know, rush right. And at the moment I'm busy because the first proofs have just landed this morning, so I now need to kind of get on with that. So it's very much stop-start.
Okay, so it's not something that you can, because I talk to other authors and they talk about, you know, literally putting aside some of their months, years. They figure out when their good time to write is, what atmosphere they're best writing in, and then they will write to that. But I talk to other authors who are almost, a very good friend of mine, he writes almost because of the pressure that he's being put under by his editor. Which of those two are you in?
Well, the first year was very gentle because nobody really realised, until I'd written something, nobody knew quite where it was going to go. So it was, I would set aside time each day and I'd write and remember and go through my diaries and write a bit more. And I kind of wrote everything possible, and then for them to then decide which bits they wanted to keep and which bits they didn't. And then once they decided what they wanted, then it's pressure. And actually I work much better, as I always knew, much better under pressure. And if there's not a deadline, like packing the house up at the moment, until I've got a moving date, the packing's just a bit wishy-washy. But the moment I've got a date, it's there.
Focused.
So it's that sort of pressure.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. So let's take ourselves, because I know that a lot of you've just mentioned the Land Army work, which I didn't mention at all, because this woman also went, as she's just mentioned, and picked celery at the beginning of lockdown, because why wouldn't you? And I think that was a bit of a backbreaker. But let's just take ourselves back to you've mentioned on several occasions that you almost fall into things, that this isn't a planned life experience, that somebody almost offers you the opportunity rather than you saying I want it and knocking on the door. Is that how the majority of your life has been?
Almost all of it, yes, totally. Things have come along. The bomb disposal officer bit, I didn't even know it was possible. We were just sat around, have you got a steady hand? No, I've got malaria, I shake like a leaf. And never mind, you're off to be a bomb disposal officer. That's it. I didn't know. I would have volunteered if I'd known about it, but I was voluntold rather than volunteered. So I didn't know about that. My husband saw the advert for joining the University Constabulary in the first place, and I thought, oh, that sounds quite fun. So I then went along, and then the marshal retired. So I just kind of thought, well, yes. I've never had this great plan. I mean, I've made plans, but they never actually happen,
So the concept of asking you what's your 5-year plan would be something, because obviously when we're talking careers, and we talk careers a lot with people, particularly when they're transitioning from one job role to another, we'll help them with, okay, what are your weaknesses? What are your strengths? What would you like to be? Where would you like to be in 5 years' time? What do we need to do to move you along? How can we help with training? We spend a lot of time with that, but really your life has not really followed that type of process.
Not at all. I've used every skill that I've ever gained along the way. I've needed and I've used at some point or another. So nothing has ever been wasted. But there's and there has always been a connection of security. I was in airport security before I joined the army, and did lots more security, and I do quite a bit of security stuff now. So that as a sort of overarching trend, if you like, has been in the security type.
But did you recognise that? Is that now on reflection that it's always been in the security world, or is it more? Well, that was just the way it was.
I think I knew that. I wanted to join the police, the Home Office police, when I was sort of 16 or so, and so that's kind of followed. So when the part of the army that we were in disbanded, I then decided to join the military police, because again, that was the sort of direction I knew I was going to go into. And that's why the constable job appealed when I was shown it. And yes, so I've known the police security world without actually ever having been. I mean, this is the first time I've ever been a constable. I have the office of constable is now. And it is quite cool to be kind of like a chief constable of a private police force, bearing in mind I've never actually been in the Home Office police at all.
Yeah. Yeah, and do you do a lot of liaison with? We were going to talk about the book, and I knew that we'd do this, but do you do a lot of liaison with other police forces?
Nope, not at all, really. A little bit with Cambridge sometimes, but only when we know that student protests are going to get out of hand or going to go on into public spaces. So there's a couple of police I know quite well, and a lot of my constables are ex-police of some either close protection or in some way. But not really, because we are very much focused on university property.
Yeah, but you do liaise with your counter members that say in Oxford, in
all the time.
City.
Absolutely, the ceremonial side of Cambridge and Oxford are we work very much in unison. So whatever Oxford are going to do, then we'll look at, and we have regular chats, and we have an annual bowls match where we sort out what's happening, and we just make sure that we're in step, if you like, with what's happening there, because whatever happens in Oxford will be happening next year in Cambridge, or vice versa. So we do
being aware of each other is quite important, I guess. Yeah. So let's move back to the book. So how did you actually scale up this book? Did you literally break down the chapters? You knew it was going to have to be 400 pages, and therefore you knew that it was going to be 12 chapters, or how did you
they started on
thought, or?
It's very strange. They started off saying they wanted each chapter to be a theme. So they wanted a theme on risk, and a theme on camaraderie, and a theme on this. And then we realized that I jumped around my timeline so much. You're so confused as to what I'm doing and why and where, that wasn't going to work, and that it's better to do it chronologically. But no, I did go through my diaries and then pull out the important bits from each year.
So there's potentially another book just on that, isn't there, to do a themed approach to the whole story?
Yep, very much so. Yeah, and much of those themes actually disappeared because the book is very much focused on bombs and bomb disposal.
Yeah.
Although I say Northern Ireland hits quite a big hit in it.
So how
And
many years are we talking about? What's the span of the book from a
well, strictly speaking, it's 24. It's from the age of 24 to 54, so it's 30 years. But
yeah.
that's the epilogue, which is kind of just touching everyone, Cambridge, what's happened now. But it does cover the shock of joining the army and why I joined the army, what happened, and then why I left, and then all the issues of leaving the army. And it's not an easy process to adjust to a civilian world, particularly one in Cambridge where we are slightly more civilian, I feel, than perhaps other parts.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's that reverse culture shock of leaving the army, and
Yeah.
then how I'm using all of that now.
And I guess, and I don't know, but is the standardized process that you've walked into, or the new role that you've walked into, because it is quite regimented, because it is quite structured, is the transition potentially easier?
Yes, definitely. And that's because there seems to be an awful. I need to do a lot of planning, and there's one thing that we're good at being through Sandhurst is that you plan for every possible eventuality.
Yeah.
And certainly when you're looking at the ceremonial side, things very rarely go badly wrong. But when they do, you need someone who's got a background in knowing how to cope when things go wrong, because they do quite a lot in any military situation. And therefore, and that sort of really is mirrored when it comes to protests and demonstrations, because I need to plan for every eventuality, but then need to be able to move really quickly as we're overtaken by events. And a lot of the Cambridge structures aren't really balanced for that. We've done the same thing for 800 years. The ceremony is exactly the same. And so things going wrong is something where I feel that I can add value, because I can
Yeah.
deal with it go wrong.
Yeah. So is that partly to do with your ability to control the panic, or is that
Yes,
partly to, yeah.
I would say it's to control the panic, because you know that when anything does go wrong, everything sort of narrows down and you need to focus on certain things. So there are little things like evacuation plans. The emergency gate has to be locked, but it has a combination lock. And on the day, I will set the first 3 digits of the combination, because I know that, and when you're panicking, the last thing you can do, so the only need to switch the last number onto 1 extra digit to be able to
Yeah.
get that gate to open. Because otherwise, I know that when you're panicking, the last thing you want to do is remember a number and then try and do it in a combination lock. So it's that sort of thing.
But do you think that the structure that you went through in bomb disposal training, also helped with that? So that control of the panic and that control of what you were doing must have been a big part of that training, and indeed your career that followed it. Do you think that has helped in future careers?
Yeah, definitely. I write quite a bit in the book about how I've learned to focus in order to not think about what it is you're really doing. There is this thing that's enormous and it's going to kill me, and if I get it wrong, and mustn't get it wrong. You play a little thing in your head, and you work out, and you can just do it as if you were just going over and opening a door and fetching a new roll of sellotape or something. You don't associate the risk with what you're doing with what you're physically doing.
So
Definitely
was some of what you were doing then, was it training muscle memory? Because I mean, fairly obviously you were going through a process. You control
yes.
the panic, going through a process. It becomes muscle memory to a certain extent, because you know that that's what you've got to do. Can cut out all of the chaff around you. I mean,
Yes.
and is that easy? Is that business of compartmentalizing?
It is quite, because I can focus on a single task, and make sure that task fills my head, because otherwise, I'm in modern day you're busy multitasking, you're doing this, and sometimes in graduation ceremonies I'm sitting there and I'm processing all the graduates, and I'm thinking, I wonder what's for supper, and I'm and you can zone out if you're doing it. So you need to have to fill your head with the job that you're doing, so that there's no room for anyone else to think, or what if this went wrong, or what, that no room for doubt. You want to make sure that the job you're doing fills your entire focus. And that's been really useful forwards on, certainly on long ceremonies where I have a particular role to play and everything relies on me getting that bit right. Honorary degrees is a particular day where I'm the one that's front and centre, and it will all go wrong if I'm not exactly in the right place with the right thing at the right time.
Yeah. And that's exceptionally important for the individual that you're talking to, isn't it? So, you know, it's important that it goes correctly. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a very public thing. I mean, honorary degrees is, it's you know, watched by lots of people, and it needs to be got right.
And potentially filmed and on television, depending on the person that actually you're giving the honorary degree to, I assume.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But actually, what happens inside the Senate House is secret. I mean, well, not secret as in, but it's exclusive. There's no cameras. No video at the moment. Well, we're going to live stream, no doubt, but yeah, in due course. But no, there's not been any normal photography. It's stills only.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm not even sure you can chunk your life, because bomb disposal was how long? 2 years, 3 years?
It was two and a half years. Yeah.
2.5 years. RMP was Royal Military Police was
8 years.
8. And you've been doing what you're doing now for 5?
Well, I was a constable for 8 years, and I've been marshal for 2.
Okay, so it's almost you know, it's almost I've been at this slightly longer, each different role, hasn't it?
Yeah, very much so.
And have you found that the book has been a really good reflective process, to, you know, almost cathartic and reflective, and, you know, and has that changed any of what you're thinking now about where you are? Because you're actually spending time and looking back on things. Some people find it very good for them. Some people go, God, that was a real mistake. I shouldn't have done that. You know, which was it for you?
It's a bit of each. The bits where I think that actually I don't want to go back there, those are bits actually I haven't put in the book. I might have referred to them in outline, but I thought I don't want to mentally go back there. But no, it's definitely changed the way I look back on my career. The very fact that I've had to reread every day of the diaries to see, you know, the Army's very much highs and lows. And I've walked away, just remembering the highs, but going back through the diaries, I've remembered all the lows, and they're in the book as well, because I think you need that balance.
But it's a fuller account if you do it like that, isn't it?
Exactly. I hadn't realised how lonely you can be in a crowd, and the Army can be a very lonely place, just as much as it can be an absolutely, you know, crammed with friends place. And the situation you find yourself in Northern Ireland, you know, it was a very difficult time, and then coming away from that and sort of decompressing. So yeah, no, it's been a very interesting.
So the need to decompress in Northern Ireland is absolute, and everybody understands that, have come from a military background. But I'm sure that even some of the events that you now have, there is a need to decompress, particularly if things have started to get quite tense. Have you taken any of the lessons from that sort of, you know, military decompression into other walks of your life, or have you not really given that any consideration?
No, I really have. I've realised that I need green space as part of my decompression. There's this room to breathe, this anti-claustrophobic thing of, you know, greenery for me is like oxygen. So I need to be out and about and outside. So that's where the dogs come in. I know what I need in order to deal with whatever sort of issues there may be. So I now know myself a lot better for having been through it. And I know myself even better now for having reflected and realised why I do what I do now is because of what happened here, there, and everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, we try to talk about in work, we try to talk about reflection on a routine basis. We don't necessarily always achieve it, but we try to reflect on the practices that we're going through. And I do think that there's some real benefit to it from a learning perspective, you know, to do that reflection. There are occasions it's quite painful, as you've already said, but I think it's more positive than it is negative. So the book's published when?
18th of March. 2020, but it's available now on Amazon. Funny, it's even on a discount at the moment, which is, you know, appalling.
You mean I bought it at full price, but it's on a discount?
No, there is a price guarantee if you pre-order. So no, it's available on Amazon to pre-order. In fact, most of the places now will pre-order it. But no, it's 18th of March. 18th of March.
And what's the celebration look like for is there a book launch? Have they told you to do it?
No
you're doing
idea
a tour?
at the moment. I think because it's March, I think we're still going to be an online thing.
Yeah.
So, but on all the literary festivals that I'm, obliged to go to, that yeah, but they're all online now as well. So I'm not quite sure quite how it's going to look, but at least they would have practiced a few online book launches, because there's so many books are doing really well at the moment because book sales have gone up.
Yeah,
So,
which is again a positive. Every now and again we've got to remind ourselves that this whole period has had some positives, and people are spending more time looking at books, proper books rather than electronic ones, and spending time reflecting and just making sure that they're in the right space personally, which I think is a really positive one. So if you were to do it again, which you will, because I know there's more material for the second book, what are you going to do differently?
Oh my word. Well, firstly, I'd collaborate with someone else, definitely, because I'm not very good when I'm sat there with a blank sheet of paper. If I've already got a structure and they say, we want you to write about this, 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 and this, then that's fine. I can do that, no problem. But looking at the blank and they say, write what you like, then that's really struggle with. So I am trained to follow instructions on the whole, until they become nonsense, in which case I'll go off on my own. But so yeah, I think if someone needs to tell me what they want me to write, and then I'll come up and I can perform with that. So so yes, so either someone who's got an idea, or a particular topic they want me to write about. I can write a lot about being late, and I can write a lot about making it up as you go along, because I've done a lot. Those are the things I've done most of.
So the ability to cuff is definitely something that you were trained early on, was it?
Oh yes, absolutely. And then we say that in Cambridge with big ceremonies, and when someone's really shaky and nervous and it's their first thing and they don't know what to do, and I say, look, even if you just go ahead and go off without me, and it will make it look as if it all happens that way every time. It's just we're so practiced at smoothing over the wrong person standing up to get the wrong degree. We can make it look as if we always do it that way. So yeah, keep calm and carry on and all that. No,
so maybe that's the title of the next book. Keep calm and carry on.
Well, I didn't even think up with the title for this one. That was my agent that came up with the title for Lighting the Fuse.
So come on, Lucy, what is it called?
It's called Lighting the Fuse.
Lighting the Fuse. And I'm always much better at the cover than I am the title, because I always refer to it's on the third shelf down and it's orange, and people go to me, oh, for goodness sake, what's its name? I don't know what its name is. So what does the cover look like?
It's going to be a fairly dark cover with a lit fuse in the center of it, with a big spark, big flame, and big yellow writing, Lighting the Fuse, Lucy Lewis, all the L's.
Perfect.
So, yes.
Perfect. So you've heard it here first, folks. It's out in March next year, available on Amazon and all good bookstores now if you order ahead. I know it'll be a good read because I've already read a couple of chapters, so please do go ahead and have a look at it. But I think for me, the most important part of everything that Lucy said is that there are occasions that you can just let luck move you in different directions. It doesn't always have to be a massive plan. I think that most of the time you've enjoyed what you've done, Lucy. There have been occasions where you've not enjoyed it, I know, but most of the time it's been good fun. This woman can talk for Britain. I know we're going to ask her to come back again and tell us some of the stories that she's got in her head, because they just amuse me. And we might ask another author and maybe throw topics at them and see what they do together, because I think that might be quite interesting too. Lucy, I'm really, really grateful. Thank you so much for coming today. Ladies and gentlemen, we are talking about a completely different subject area next week. It's change and project management, and we're being joined by a colleague from overseas, from Benelux, who is running a very successful business out there, and we just wanted to talk about what the links are between change management and project management, and how you might work together in that space. Lucy, thank you so much, and hopefully catch up soon. You take care. Keep well.
You too.
Bye now. Bye.